Hey, what's up, guys? It's Nico from Porch Talk. I just wanted to tell you guys, hey, thank you so much for your support. It really goes a long way. Sorry to interrupt the episode at the beginning. I just want to let you know, if you could leave a rating and review specifically on iTunes. It really goes a long way. It really helps the channel grow, really helps the podcast get to more people. And yeah, I love you all. Thank you so much for your support. I'm loving doing these episodes, and so is Marcus. And yeah, please rate, review on iTunes, and love you all. Enjoy. Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Nico.
And this is Marcus.
And welcome to Porch Talk. We had Marcus's good friend, Tom, on the podcast today.
Yeah, Tom Herner.
Man, he is just a wealth.
He's a powerhouse, man.
Yeah, he is a friggin' powerhouse. He has so much knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
It is insane. I mean, I feel like I could talk to him for like 7 of these episodes, man.
Oh, yeah, definitely. He's going to be one of those guests that we have back on. He expressed a lot of interest in that, too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this man is so calculated with how he talks and what he says. It's insane.
He's one of those folks who's got an energy about them, something that's definitely going to be palpable as you guys are listening to this.
Yeah, man. With that being said, enjoy the episode. Don't forget to leave a rating and review on iTunes, and we love you all. Enjoy.
And you also don't have to worry about your volume too much, but yeah, you'll be all right, man. You'll be all right.
Yeah, we're always adjusting.
Yeah.
Okay, so this would be the appropriate speaking distance.
Perfect, man. That's perfect.
Perfect.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite things about you, Tom. You find so many things interesting.
Well, I think everything's interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the fun of like everything is if you can keep that. Little kids are really interested in everything that happens around them because everything is brand new for the first time forever. They're thinking all the time. If you can keep that
sense of
then
wonder.
life is really fun.
Yeah,
but if you like are just not interested in anything that's going on and just like, oh, okay, then it's not fun. If you stop asking why, then it gets boring.
Yeah, that is true, man. I absolutely love that sense of wonder about you, though. And then also you've got this very I don't know exactly what to call it, but a systemized brain where you really break things down into their component parts, and then you really just go after it like that. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it's like very visible.
I think it goes hand in hand with the interested thing. Yeah, I'm interested in things, and I have to be able to separate them and figure them out.
You're also very methodical and like calculated with what you say. It's really interesting. You're really one of the few people that are really meticulous, methodical, calculated with what they're talking about.
Most of the time. I think there are definitely times where I'll just say something and it's not well thought out.
Yeah, that makes sense, and better than most people. That's what I gotta say. But anyway, so how do you and Marcus know each other?
Am I answering this or is he answering this?
You're answering.
I'm answering this. Okay, so Marcus and I are both members of the executive board of Wright State's Entrepreneur Club. So that's how we met. I think like a year or 2 years ago, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. So, how's the business going along so far? I know you guys are. Are you about done setting up everything? You're getting all your clients together, right? Or you?
What are we talking about?
Oh, he's talking about Wright Enterprise. He's talking about Wright Enterprise, the advertisement business. Setting up on campus. Wow, I'm actually a terrible friend because I actually have not kept you in the loop about this.
I would cut that part.
No, it's fine. I actually want to explain, not explain, but do talk about it a little bit. My bad. Things. We hit a manpower wall. I think that's the best way to explain it, in as neutral of a way as possible. We just hit a manpower wall where we had enough willing parties, enough willing people who were excited to get forward and get after it and really start this business. And I mean, we had some super interested people. Even just last semester, we had this one kid come in who was like, "Oh, we can do this and we do this." He came in with so many different ideas, but we just didn't have enough manpower behind it, so we just had to put things on hold. We still have the business plan. Things are racked up. We've talked with a number of the folks who we would need to get this done, but it's really just about recruitment, getting people involved, making sure our club's in a stable position before we kind of go up into this like higher order thing, if that makes sense. So yeah. So no, the business is not a thing right now, but the club is doing phenomenal, absolutely phenomenally. I love it. I'm loving it, man.
Yeah, I think it's starting to grow more. It's really getting into its own thing. The idea for Right Enterprise is really, really good. Like, it's a no-brainer. It's fantastic. But like Marcus said, I think the club was not at that point yet and had to focus on other things in between.
Yeah. But yeah, we met each other through the club. When did you get involved with it? I'm curious.
What happened? I think it's John is his name, who is the guy.
John Adams?
Yeah, everybody's name is John, but
This is true.
It is, yeah. John Adams came into my marketing class and talked about the Entrepreneur Club. This is like the third iteration of the Entrepreneur Club, right?
Yeah.
Before Tyler tried to do it, there was a kid named Isaac who tried to start the club. And I don't remember Isaac's last name, but I met with Isaac like 3 years ago, maybe. And I don't remember if I read an article and then sought him out or how that worked. But he talked to me about, his vision for the club and all of that. And I said, I thought to myself, this is very interesting. And the club didn't really pick up that year. It didn't really take off. And so I heard about it again the following year when John Adams came into my marketing class and talked about it. And I had, at that time, my company, Barn Gang, was a recent, inductee into the Entrepreneur Center's ESP program. So I emailed Jordan Rowe, and I said, "Hey, Jordan, this kid just came into my class to talk about Wright State's Entrepreneur Club. I would like to get involved in that. Do you know any of the players? Do you know who to talk to?" And he did an introduction email with me and Tyler, and so that led to me and Tyler sitting down and talking. And I expressed I was interested in helping out with the club. So that's how I got involved with it.
And when was that? You said that was the start of 2017?
That was, whatever the first year that Tyler, it would have been the start of 2017.
Okay, so that, I think it was the
fall
start
semester.
Of
the school year.
It was the fall semester of 2017. Okay,
yeah.
So with me, it wasn't until I think it was either a late November. No, it was a December meeting, the second to last meeting of the semester, where I got involved.
Of 2017 still?
Yeah, of 2017. Okay. And it was just purely a brainstorming meeting. There were so many people in that room. There were so many people in there. It was ridiculous. A lot of people, actually, who I never saw again, which is really kind of odd.
I wonder how that happened. Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know what they did. I don't know how they lured people in. But there were, I don't even know, 20 some odd people in that room. Like I said, many of whom I never saw again. But, the ideas are just flowing. Everybody just had so many,
Wait, was it upstairs?
Yeah,
in
Ullman
Hall.
And John
was
Adams,
I at that meeting?
I think you were. I didn't ever talk with you.
We split into different.
Right.
All right.
We split into groups.
I remember that.
But the crazy thing was just the energy in that room was palpable. Everybody got to take over sections of whiteboards in the room, and we filled those doggone things up with just visions of what this club could possibly be. And I gotta tell you, man, it's been so much fun, Nico. It's been so much fun ever since then, man. And Tom, I tell these people in the club from time to time that I love them, that they're some of my favorite people on earth, because they really, really are. This club has been transformative for me, man. Like you never know. How do we get there? I forgot.
Nico asked how we met, and then that led to how did each of us get started in the entrepreneur club.
So then what is your major then?
Entrepreneurship.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I actually I knew from the beginning of like when I originally went to. Can I go on a tangent?
Yeah, do it,
Is
man.
that fine?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go on a tangent.
We got plenty
Yeah.
of time, man.
So I originally went to Sinclair. I graduated high school, and it was financially it was more expensive for me to go to Sinclair than it was for me to go to Wright State. But I decided to go to Sinclair because my girlfriend at the time was going there. And the thing that I learned from that is you should not pick your education path based on a significant other, because if it's going to work, it's going to work both of you doing your thing.
Yeah, either way. It's gonna work. Yeah.
So anyway, after that didn't work, I transferred to Wright State, and I knew that Wright State was going to have an entrepreneurship program, but it was not ready yet. It was like it was at least a year out. But I knew some people who knew about that in the College of Business, and so they said what you need to do is take the marketing path, and then once we announce this major, that'll be the path that we announce as the direction into it. So I did marketing for my first 2 years as my pre-degree path, and then switched to entrepreneurship once they brought that out.
Okay, and with this entrepreneurship degree, what is your end goal with it? What do you want to do with it? And where do you want to end up?
Well, the degree is totally irrelevant. The only purpose of the degree is to have one. I want to end up exactly where I am right now, which is really great for me because I know, first of all, I know how to answer your question in that I know where I want to be. I want to be in Dayton. I would like to be John Patterson, but of this generation. I want to be somebody who pushes for a cause and, creates a product that changes people's lives, but also is able to find and cultivate the next generation of that set. Charles Kettering is responsible for almost every major automotive development that happened in the early 1900s. I mean, the first modern gasoline was pumped in a Dayton gas station, and it was developed out of Delco's labs under Charles Kettering. It was actually under a guy whose name is Thomas something. Smigley, something like that.
Thomas Smigley?
Midley? I don't know. It's a strange name, ends in Lee, L-E-Y. But he, John Patterson had hired Kettering to put electricity in the cash register, and that was a good thing for the cash register itself, but more than that, it caused Kettering to have the knowledge of using small motors to, electric motors to run things that would otherwise be mechanical. Mm-hmm. And using that knowledge, him and Colonel Deeds, who was also an NCR executive, created the electric starter in cars.
Okay. I'm actually gonna have to stop you here because this is a big thing that I do want to talk to you about. Your amazing reservoir of knowledge of the history of Dayton and the modern world. But we'll get to that in a second. Actually, you mentioned your company, Barn Gang LLC. Do you want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah. Can I transition back to it?
Go ahead.
I would actually. This is a really good time for you to have said that in the story. Actually, that's perfect. So I want to be John Patterson. I would like to be that guy who creates a company based around a product that changes the way that people do business. I mean, before the cash register, things like receipts didn't really happen. Accounting as a profession wasn't something that you could do. It was just the storekeep has his general ledger, and hopefully all of his employees are honest. But so to answer your question, I want to be John Patterson of this generation.
Okay.
To answer Marcus's question, while creating the electric car starter, while that was being created, it happened in the carriage house behind Colonel Deeds's house in Dayton, and it was Kettering, Deeds, and some other NCR engineers, and they called themselves the Barn Gang. And that company eventually turned into, because they worked in a barn, and that company eventually turned into Delco, Dayton Electric Lights, company. Yeah, so, and they're responsible for, or at the time, they were pretty much the research development wing of General Motors. I mean, the effects of that are all over the entire world. My last car, my current car is a Buick, which is a GM. And yeah, and when I replaced the filters recently, they were all Delco filters, which now Delco is no longer its own company as much as it is like a brand under GM. My last car was a Volvo. The Volvo was manufactured in another country, and the key was manufactured in Germany. On the key, it said Delphi, which was an offshoot of Delco.
Yeah. My dad worked at Delphi.
There we go. A lot of the population of this area is somehow at some point touched by all of that.
Oh, yeah. I can see that.
And I just think that's the coolest thing in the world. That
you have such a huge impact over the...
Right here in Dayton.
Mm-hmm,
I mean, the modern world wouldn't exist. You wouldn't have refrigerant in your car for your air or in your damn refrigerator. Like frigid air. Like those, they literally wouldn't exist. Salesmanship as a concept was invented at Sugar Camp, right on the border of Oakwood and Dayton. I mean, you were a born salesman or you weren't. Like, you either were charismatic or you did not sell things. I mean, and they invented the first NCR. They invented the first sales, premier. I'm not sure. Premier. Anyway, they created the first, canned sales pitch. How about that? They created the first canned sales pitch. Along with a lot of, back in the early 1900s, marketing was this huge print. You guys have seen, the old school ads and stuff. And they really changed that, like NCR did. Really changed the way that companies get and find their clients. It's just, at one point in time, 1 in 6 of every business executive in the entire country had been hired and then fired by John Patterson. Working at NCR was the rough equivalent of having an MBA.
Oh, wow.
And I want to do that. I want to bring that.
Yeah, that sounds badass, dude.
Kind of. I want to bring that back to Dayton.
Yeah, man, badass is the word. Like seriously, whenever I listen to you talk about this city, and I don't know, it makes me feel like as if there's just something in the water, there's something in the air, and it makes me feel like each and every one of us has the potential to be a part of. Oh, we do, this amazing thing. I mean, you get this story of Dayton. What's the number one thing you always hear kids our age always saying about Dayton? Dayton sucks. I can't wait to get out of Dayton. Oh, I'm gonna move somewhere else. I can't wait.
They're boring people. I'm serious, and they'll be unhappy in the next place.
You're probably not wrong, but
happiness is not a destination, it's a journey. If you can't be, I understand if you're unhappy in an environment and then okay, you need to change your environment, but the people that are oh, there's nothing to do, there's nothing going on, nothing's ever happened here. They're just boring people. And they don't seek that extra thing. They want it given to them. And for them, that is, I don't know. You know?
Like if I need to park a Ferris wheel like a mile away from your house for you to feel like there's something going on in life, you know, I think is that sort of what you're getting at? Like if I need to have this big, like lit up attraction for you to think there's something going on in life.
If you need that thing, then build it.
Thank you.
Here and give it to your friends.
That's amazing, man.
Don't just go off. Because something will be wrong there too, you know.
But the question I was going to ask you, it's really, how did you become so inspired by the city? You know, like how did you first start learning about this amazing Dayton story that you always preach?
I try not to believe in bad things. I believe in things that aren't what you wanted them to be. But I think that everything is good. And I think that if you're willing for it to be good, then it will be. I believe in finding the good in things. I have had the privilege of seeing a lot of the good parts, the good things of Dayton, and have had a lot of people around me growing up that know the history, and so I read a book. I read several books, but specifically I read a book after I'd already had my Dayton obsession. Called The Grand Eccentrics, and it talks about 5 people, actually 6 if you count the Wright brothers as 2, which you would, but that really changed, just this area, but through that, everything. Then that's James Cox. Cox Media is probably a group you've heard of. He was also the governor of Ohio for a while, failed for running for president, and was from this area. Arthur Morgan, the guy who we had the flood in 1913. Arthur Morgan is the engineer that they brought in to create the dam system that keeps the city from flooding today. John Patterson, NCR. His impacts were across the entire fucking world.
Yes, you can curse. You're fine. No, you're good. You're good.
Have I? Oh, I didn't know.
You're good. You're good.
Across the entire world. Today, growing, none of us have walked into a store that didn't have a cash register.
Yeah.
The credit system that turned into credit cards was created by Charles Kettering at NCR. Oh, Kettering is one of the next people on the list. And then both of the Wright brothers. The Grand Eccentrics discusses those 6 people and their massive impact. I think that's a really good book for people to read to who want to get into it and interested in it. I don't know. Growing up, I realized we have everything around here that we need, and whatever we don't have, the cost of living is so low that we can go to those things in our free time.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense to me. And I love your mindset about Dayton and about all of the things that you want to do with Dayton. And it sucks that we can't change the mindsets of others as well.
We can.
Well, with the action you are doing right now. And I believe that once enough people have changed that mindset, that Dayton can get back to where it was previously in its prime, for the most part at least. Once everybody gets their mindset back and everybody's on the same page and they're growing together and are helping each other build each other up and all that good stuff, I feel like it could by far get back to its prime.
Well, I think it's heading that direction.
Oh, yeah,
it's
of course.
sprinting there really now,
mhm.
and all of Ohio is doing that. Honestly, I mean, Ohio is a wonderful area. If we were our own economy, if we were our own country, we'd be the 25th largest economy in the world. Yeah,
Really?
isn't that nuts?
That's insane.
Ohio is,
Although that said, Mexico was like 11th, right? So
yeah, but just Ohio is 25th.
I know I'm just making a Mexico
It's
joke.
crazy. And the direction that the state is heading in is to be in 10 years. The idea is that this is going to be the capital of the country for information technology. The idea is that this will be the next Silicon Valley. In reality, we were the first Silicon Valley. I mean, in Dayton, we had more patents per capita than any other city in the country in the early 1900s. I mean, this is the city of innovation. And we're just heading back in that direction. Right now, Columbus is the number 2 city in the country for if you want to go get an IT job. That's fantastic. The Columbus, Dayton, Cincinnati area, all of those 3 as a whole are really being built up.
Yeah, there's a lot of construction and new buildings coming up in Columbus that I've seen happening for a couple years now. I don't know really much about Cincinnati just because I don't usually visit there as much as I visit Columbus. But I know, especially Columbus, that it's growing at such a crazy rate. It's insane.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
But so going back to your LLC.
Oh yeah. So I thought it was very neat. They called themselves the Barn Gang, Kettering and Deeds, and so me and my friends, we sit around and talk about ways that we can make the world better and what we can do that will improve things. And that goes along with a lot of just ideas. Things happen, problems that we witness, and we're like, okay, well, how can we solve this? What would be a solution? And so a few years ago, some friends and I decided that we were going to make one of the solutions that we'd come up with for a problem real. And I wanted to name the company Barn Gang, so we did, as a nod to the early Dayton inventors that called themselves the Barn Gang, and then changed the entire automotive industry. So the company is it's a legal publishing company. It's cities have laws, and so we have a website that makes them easy for citizens to find and sort through. A lot of the solutions that exist right now are made by lawyers for lawyers, and so we said, okay, that's a problem that we found. I think we know how to solve it, and then we started building a solution for it. The product is called Lawkeeper. That's the name of the website.
It's an awesome product.
I like it. Hey, I think it's the search features that we use are far and away better than almost every, I won't say every, but almost every other like municipal codifying company's offerings.
So do you put laws into like plain English, as some would say?
We don't change the words.
Okay.
That would be illegal. We make them easier to access. We make it so that you don't need to know like the exact we don't need to know the exact like code or exact legal term. Our search option or search engine
yeah
uses synonyms, so you can speak in normal. You can type in like you would Google
in plain English,
and we'll get you the technical response.
That's excellent. There's always been a gap between kind of the public's understanding of of how to operate in the world, and then also like the actual legal binds. That's why there's so many people. You'll hear certain stories of people who, well, they're just like start up a random company doing something, and then out of nowhere they'll get slammed with like, hey, you owe us a lot of money for what you've been doing there, buddy. Not people not paying their taxes, different things like that, not properly accounting for the right things too.
Yeah,
it can be a mess, man.
Well, and it can be hard to even figure out what you needed to know in the first place, and that's why it happens. And a lot of people can't afford a lawyer to sit and go through and figure out, all of it, or an accountant that that knows already how to do all that.
Right.
And then it's compounded by it being harder to even find the law in the first place. And that's the problem that we wanted to solve, was how can we take a code book of a city and get that out to its citizens in the easiest way. Yeah.
I love this group of friends that you have. I mean, I just think of like kind of our friend group. We just sit around. Instead of thinking about the functioning of the functions of a city government and the relationship between that and its citizens, we just kind of talk about like whether or not Cameron's pancreas functions properly or not, or just make stupid jokes about his diabetes or something like that, man. I don't know.
See, that's what you're thinking, but when I'm thinking about how can I make people better health-wise and athleticism-wise, you know what I'm saying?
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'm shooting at you, Marcus. I'm sorry. That is the business I'm starting up here soon. Actually, this month is personal training, health and wellness.
Marcus told me about that.
Yeah. So,
what caused you to be that way?
So
you look like a trainer. You visibly.
So it all started.
Like that's what you should be doing.
It all started, honestly, when elementary school, him and I. Playing out in our front yard. I was always the really skinny kid, like nothing but skin and bones, no meat on me whatsoever. I'd always get, every time I got into a scuffle or a little fight with either him or my brothers, I would lose 9 times out of 10. My little brother could beat the shit out of me when we were younger, just because our builds were different. I was a skinny guy. Then it got into middle school. I mean, I consider myself a nice-looking gentleman, but when I was so skinny back in the day, I wasn't even probably 100 pounds in middle school. Everybody just wasn't I guess the word would be, they wouldn't be afraid to get in a fight with me, really. Like, everybody thought they could overpower me easy, which they could. I mean,
weren't intimidating.
I wasn't intimidating. I didn't have that intimidation factor.
You don't think you're getting respect?
I probably wasn't getting respect. But then, come freshman year, buck 25, soccer started. I was a big soccer player, played soccer my whole life. I was always a real aggressive soccer player, but again, I didn't have the mass, the weight or the strength in general to be being as physical as I was. So that actually probably was the big factor for me not getting on my the reserve team my freshman year, and probably even varsity going on sophomore, junior year. So sophomore year, I was like, screw this. I'm going to go to the gym as many days as I can. That ended up being 2 years until I injured myself, and I was like, all right, I got to take a step back, figure out.
Injured yourself how?
Shoulder injury from exercising improperly. So
because you didn't have the form right, or you were
form,
doing,
yeah,
okay,
all form, and I thought I was ego lifting, so I was lifting as much weight as possible for my frame, and it was really bad shoulder injury. But then I was like, all right, I need to take a step back, really analyze what I want to do with my life, as well as what I want to do to best help my performance in my sport. So I was like, all right, I'm going to take a personal training certification. And I did. I loved it, absolutely loved it.
What year is this? What time is it?
This was junior year, so 2015.
And how old are you at the time?
I am 16, probably. 16 going on 17. So I took my certification, became nationally certified through the NASM, National Academy of Sports Medicine. And then I landed a personal training job with one of my teacher's husbands. And that was just the icing on the cake that made me decide that I wanted to do personal training and go along with my passion of this. In the process of fast forward to senior year, I'm still working at the personal training studio, and I think I was 155, 160 pounds, nothing but muscle at that point. And the amount of change that the coaches saw in me, they said it was night and day difference. And that just those couple factors and those mentors that I got along the way with training, with my mentor that I still hold close to me and I go to for all my information, or a lot of my questions and information, really have made me want to spread what I learned and what I experienced. I know other people are experiencing it as well, and I just want to give them everything I didn't have. So that's really my...
What are you going to call it?
Working title, I don't know. Probably just Libertini LLC. Nothing too crazy. I don't know yet. That's one thing. I don't know any catchy names yet.
Are you trying to just contract yourself out or to create a studio yourself?
See, with the whole studio thing, at this day and age, it's probably not the best thing to go into studio-wise for personal training. At this point in time, it's usually the online personal training market is growing at an astronomical rate, whereas studio training and one-on-ones.
What is that? What do you mean online?
Online. So all your clientele, you have this website, and it's a programming website that you take in clients, you give them an assessment, you give them a personalized program, and you check in with them every day via text message or call, and then once or twice a week you have a video call to see how progress is going, make sure we have form down and all that stuff. It's not as personal as one-on-one, but the thing with online training, it can be a little bit cheaper as well as less time-consuming for me as the trainer.
What would you charge them?
So when I was at my first one-on-one personal training studio, I was charging anywhere between $250 to $500 a month for training. With that being said, I would probably go for the lower end, or maybe even to start, I might make it cheaper just because this is a learning curve for me for the online personal training as opposed to the one-on-one. But I would probably start off at $150 a month and then slowly work my way up to probably the lower end of my one-on-one in-person training of $250.
And what does that get people? So if...
That gets you, again, the assessment, the personalized training, as well as checkups every day, video calls once or twice a week, and nutrition plan.
Sorry, there's a pause. I'm trying to think of...
No, you're good. You're good.
Follow up on that.
The goal that I'm shooting for the end of this year is to actually work in a gym called Apex Sports over in Sydney, and I'm going to be a sports performance coach, speed and agility coach for soccer teams at this sports complex. So that's my first goal, to start getting into building my business and getting everything. Go ahead.
Have you taught people online before?
No, that's why I would start at a lower price range, because I know that this is a new way of teaching for me. So I know there's going to be a lot of learning curves for me as well. So that's the plan of charging less while trying my best to hash out all of the speed bumps and roadblocks along the way.
Interesting. I I want to ask, like, have you found it to be effective? You know, like the online thing. But if you haven't done it,
Yeah, that from what I've seen from the statistics that I've been reading up on and all of that, it seems to be a very flourishing market. Worst comes to worst, if I don't like the online training style, I will go into contracting and then probably the studio. It's just with the studio, not a lot of people are shooting for personal training at this moment in time. It's more of a group training class because it's more inexpensive, because more people can do the class, so the barrier to entry is a little lower, as well as it's a little less personalized at that point, so they get a cheaper price point for that. So
I noticed you had 2 tattoos. What are they?
okay. I have 8 tattoos. This one is on my right forearm is a scuba diver. On my left arm is an astronaut. I have my son's hand, footprint, and birth date on my left chest. And I have Mario and Luigi on my right quad and a anatomical brain inside of an anatomical heart on my calf, as well as the Triforce symbol from The Legend of Zelda on my stomach.
Talk to me about the astronaut and the scuba diver.
Okay.
Why?
So with these two, they're the opposite, but they're the same. They both live in places out of this universe, because in the deep, deep ocean, it's like a whole different world as opposed to just a regular lake or a river or something like that. As well as space. I mean, space is freaking huge. So
these are the final 2 frontiers.
Yes, basically.
The deep ocean. And
yes. And the thing with the astronaut is we've all been striving to go to the moon. We had that big race between all the countries is, hey, who can get to the moon first? And this sort of signifies you can do whatever you put your mind to. Whereas the scuba diver is like as above, so below. There's always those downfalls, and to not give up. So those are my forearm tattoos.
That's pretty sweet. I think those are really awesome.
So this is something that this is actually really weird. This is the first time that this ever happened to me. Typically, people ask you, hey, do you have any tattoos? Oh, yeah, you got tattoos? Let me see them. Okay. I was at this concert just the other day with my sister. It was Vince Staples. And this is the first time this has ever happened to me in my whole entire life. These 2 girls, they just asked me if I had any tattoos. I said no. And instead of just leaving it there, they said, why not? So, this is the first time I've ever had to think about this. So, I actually had to kind of defend myself just not having tattoos. It was just so weird. But go ahead. What's up?
Why don't you have tattoos?
I don't. Number one, because here's the thing. I was going to get a tattoo. I have the very specific tattoo idea in my head. I've had the money for it. I've totally been able to do this. But I had this conversation with Cameron after he first got his tattoo. Cameron, the same Cameron who was our first interviewee on the podcast. And he told me just about how much his tattoos cost. And I was just like, no. That was the number one thing. But then number 2, I always get afraid that I'm going to get a tattoo and it's going to look really, really nice now. And then by the time I'm 40, I think I've talked about the idea before. I want to get a gigantic eagle across the breast of my chest. The breadth of my chest, excuse me. And it's pulling with its talons a gigantic great white shark out of the ocean. That's the tattoo that I want across my chest. I'm just afraid about the time that I'm 40 or something like that. It's going to be a very, very sad eagle, and a very, very instead of the great white shark's teeth looking angry and evil, it's going to be smiling or grinning. And then by the time I'm 70, it's just going to be a mess. Well,
I would think of it as a positive result if the shark is smiling. That's kind of happy. I was Googling astronauts from Ohio.
Oh, wow.
You were talking about,
okay.
The Neil Armstrong and John Glenn,
yeah,
guys to walk on the moon, both from Ohio.
Oh, wow.
We have, for a while, we had the most astronauts that exist. I think that we still might have the most people to walk on the moon, New York now apparently has the most astronauts, so we're slacking.
We do have the second most presidents, right?
I'm not sure.
Who's
We've
the
had a
most?
lot. Yeah. Ohio is a very special place.
It really, really is. One of the reasons I think why it is such a special place, and this is a little weird, a little like things you're gonna have to bear with me here, but at the founding of our country, Ohio was the westernmost frontier. It at the time when like we first captured it from Britain, in the Treaty of Paris, 1781. No state had officially laid claim to it. Other states had laid claim to places like Kentucky and Tennessee, what would later become Louisiana or Mississippi and Alabama. People had already laid claim to them, but no one had claim to Ohio. But there were still American settlers moving there. Okay, some of these people who were moving there, especially during that interwar period between, I guess we should say between 1781. And about 1790s, the founding of the Constitution of our country. These people, living completely outside of government rule or anything like that, were some of the most industrious people to ever kind of... They were some of the most industrious settlers ever, okay? Like, folks in California,
I would say that
for
people
example,
from Ohio always have been the most industrious people.
I really do think so. Like, I think of the folks who went to California, for example. During the 1848 and 1849 gold rush. They went because there was gold. To get rich off of gold, you have to dig the gold up out of the ground or catch it flowing through a river and then go to market and sell it. And that's how you get rich off of gold. Just have to make sure nobody robs you on the way there. You could go to Arkansas, for example, and find diamonds. To get rich off of diamonds, you have to just go dig up the diamonds, which is difficult, don't get me wrong, but then you just go bring it to market, and then now you're rich. The people who moved to the places in between a lot of these very like big, huge wealth, cash grab areas, they went to these places for two reasons. A bountiful farmland and rivers to float it so it was easier to move. These people were so smart and so amazing. They actually really made like America in a whole different sense. The people who moved to the Midwest, but particularly first, it was Ohio. Just the ability to float things down, float them down in the Mississippi, float them down through Louisiana and everything like that. It was so important for our economy. That was one of the reasons why Jefferson wanted to do the Louisiana Purchase. He was just so excited to see.
That was such a good deal.
It really was. It really was. But he was just so excited to see. He's like, this farming lifestyle, because what was that, 1803 when he bought it?
I have no idea.
It was either 1803 or 1801. Ohio was founded in 1803. So we were the people he was looking at when he said, oh my God, Napoleon's going to give us Louisiana. Look at Ohio. Just think of what we could do if we had, 80 Ohios? Or it's probably an overestimate. But in terms of the land mass, just so much more
that
land.
probably is an overestimate. Yeah.
But just so much more land, so much more opportunity to like expand that sort of agrarian lifestyle, and that's what really Ohio was really founded on.
Well, and then we were the industrial boom.
Yeah.
I mean, the Gem City. It's the city of 1,000 lights.
Mm-hmm.
Because of all our 1,000 factories. All of our industrial businesses. I love Ohio.
The steel industry throughout this entire region, from Pennsylvania, here in Ohio, Michigan, over into Indiana, was huge. Even some of the Wisconsin, just the whole Great Lakes region, steel industry was huge. We ran stuff up through the St. Lawrence Seaway. We immediately after that, just like the auto industry. Talk a bit about that, because I know you know a lot more about Ohio and the auto industry with the I don't know. I don't
know what you want me to say. Most of the things that the fact that you have a radio in the car, the fact that you've got the electric car starter, quick drying paint, modern gasoline,
like just to illustrate
air
this,
conditioning.
Before the electric car starter, you had to, before you started your car, you had to crank something.
Yeah.
Like if you've ever been in one of those old school cars that has windows that don't have like a more automatic electric like window thing that you just hit a button it goes down, you hit a button it goes up. You know how you have to crank your windows up and down? It was like that. You had to do that for the engine of your car, so it would have energy to move.
Well, and
That's
those are very dangerous. People would break their arms, or people would die. I mean, the reason that Charles Kettering and Colonel Deeds were set off on the task of creating the electric car starter was that one of the guy who owned Cadillac, one of his friends died. He knocked his jaw off trying to start the car, and it backfired. And he said, "Oh my gosh, this isn't going to work. We need a better way." And
Wow. I didn't know that.
it just so happened that Kettering had all of the knowledge. He having been tasked with electrifying the cash register, was like the only guy that knew about little electrified motors to operate things. And Colonel Deeds said to on your Gold Rush thing, said to Kettering, there's a river of gold flowing past us. We just have to, dip our hands in and, I think he said sluice some of it our way.
Sleuth.
Not sleuth.
Not
no.
sleuth?
Like sluice. Something like that.
Sluice. Okay.
I'm not sure. But, and he said, we have to just dip our hands in and splash a little bit of the gold our way. And that's what they did.
Sluice.
And
Yeah.
so the Cadillac guy put out feelers for this kind of technology, and they created it. And they weren't the only ones doing it, but they were the ones that did it the best.
That's also something that's true about Ohio. I think of the Wright brothers. That's very similar with their story with flight.
Yeah, you don't have to be. Although the Wright brothers were the first, you don't have to be the first person to invent something to be the success. You have to do it the best. You can be a millionaire as a janitor as long as you are the best janitor.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't think about that. People are like, "Oh, well, it's already been done." Yeah, but it's okay. It's already been done, so you're thinking in the right way. Because if somebody's already done it, then they prove that it's viable. They made money doing it. A really fun game I like to play is just try to pick a company that exists, and think about, like, pretend you're an executive of the company, and invent something that the company needs. If you invent something that already exists, one time I accidentally invented the credit card. It took me like 2 hours. Then I realized, oh, that's a credit card. But if you invent something and I was delighted. If you invent something that already exists, then you're thinking the right way. That means you're playing the game right. Because if the thing that you've thought of has already been thought of and put out into the market, then it's a success. And so you're thinking the right way.
What I meant when I mentioned the Wright brothers, how that's very similar to Patterson with the electric motors, is that they were not the first individuals to try to start powered flight.
No.
They were, and in addition to that, they were the least funded out of all the people that I know of.
They were the least funded.
Like out of all the organizations and institutions and governments that were involved in flight. Like I think the government of France, they had at least 3 different groups of people that they had been sponsoring to master powered flight. Like just think about that. The government of what was at the time the strongest land army, the most professional land army, the wealthiest I think the second strongest industrial economy in Europe at the time, probably the second strongest in the world, right behind, probably third behind Great Britain or Germany and us. They sponsored 3 different teams of people to create power flight. And some random dudes in a bicycle shop in Ohio got there first.
Simon Sinek does a really good TED Talk about this exact thing. He expresses that if you want to truly succeed, you want people to buy your thing, then you've got to master your why. Why do you do what you do? Not what do you do or how do you do it, but why. Because in the whole, what he asserts is that we aren't buying what, we're buying why. And he talks about the Wright brothers. The reason that they succeeded and all these other people didn't is the why. They weren't trying to get rich or be famous. They wanted to, if they knew that if they could figure out this technology, they would change the world in a positive way. And he talks in his TED Talk about there's a guy who was funded by the U.S. government and by the Smithsonian. And the day the Wright brothers flew for the first time, that guy, who was the most well-funded, had all the information, just quit. Because he wanted to become very wealthy and famous. He wanted it for selfish reasons. His why was not something that will withstand. And in part, I mean, the Wright brothers, you could argue, succeeded because they didn't have all that funding. And they didn't have any time to do it in. So everything they did had to count. And as a result, there couldn't be a whole lot of waste in the avenues they pursued or the things that they created trying to invent flight. It's an asset.
Yeah, what do they say? Necessity is the mother of invention. The idea that, you're up against the wall. There's only so much left. It really does. Pressure makes diamonds,
Yeah, pressure
really
makes
does.
diamonds. That's a perfect way to put it.
So we've really talked a lot about Ohio. We've talked a little bit about your business. I want to get back to your business just for a second. So you've made this website to help average people look through the laws
Of
and
their city.
Yes, of their city.
Yeah.
What are you working on now that is up and running? Are you just doing maintenance on the website, or are you pushing to put something else out there?
Sales. Right now we're focusing on selling it to cities.
Okay.
At this point, our product is ready, but we have to build out our sales team.
Okay.
So
what is that looking like right now?
a lot of research, as with everything that I do. We've been doing a lot of research on cities and how they operate to figure out who those key players are that make that sales decision when it comes to codifying the code book.
Okay. Yeah, you definitely got to know your target market. So what is the average day of your life?
Average day of my life?
Yes.
I don't have any average days.
I love it.
I don't know. I mean, I wake up. I have a list of things to accomplish. I work at Chase. I'm a bank teller. This will be interesting to listen to again in like 5 years.
Tell me about your tea. The tea that you often have with folks.
I don't drink tea as much anymore. I used to be really big into tea. There's a wonderful tea shop in Oakwood called Central Perk, and around the time that somebody asked earlier how I got really interested in Dayton. I've always been interested in Dayton, but I don't believe in bad things, so I channel unhappiness into something positive as much as I can. So around the time that I was no longer dating the girl that I was dating when I was a freshman, I started reading books about Dayton, and I would be having tea in Oakwood every opportunity I got.
Okay.
I really like caffeine. Not anymore. I quit drinking caffeine, but I would drink a pot of tea every day.
Oh my gosh.
For a while it was 2. one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and I would not like leave my home until I had had my morning pot of tea. Tea is a really it's an educational drink, honestly, because you learn quite a bit. One of my favorite things is to learn about where the tea was sourced from, and then the history of the rituals behind whatever kind of tea. There's a wonderful company in New York called Serendipity, and they're a really big tea importer. So I always like to order boxes of stuff from them. But I had to quit drinking tea. I was on vacation with my girlfriend in Michigan. We were at her godfather's lake house on Lake Michigan this summer, and I literally couldn't function every morning until we had breakfast, and I had drank a full pot of tea. I just couldn't function, and I realized, I was like, this isn't fair to her, first of all, and it's not conducive to success,
Mm-hmm.
And at some point in my life, this might be okay now, but at some point I'm going to have kids, and it's not going to be an option to be like, get the fuck away from me. I haven't had a pot of tea.
Yeah.
You're going to need to wait another hour before we can talk. Like, that's not going to work.
Of course.
Right? So I quit drinking tea. It took me 8 days, which was nothing. I thought it would be worse.
Yeah, really. That doesn't sound like...
I really thought it would be harder. But what I did was I had gone under for a procedure in August. And so they gave me a bunch of fentanyl and benzodiazepines, all the fun stuff. And I couldn't eat or drink anything till 11 o'clock that morning, right? And then they drug me up, and then I go home. And that was day one. Because I knew I'd be so drugged up that I wasn't going to notice.
Yeah.
So I didn't drink tea that day. And then I ordered a small cup the next day as opposed to my normal large. And then I just would drink less and less for 8 days until it was one sip the last day. And then I was done. I really thought it was going to be harder than that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, because caffeine's one of the most addicting things in this world, you know?
I've been addicted to and then quit caffeine twice,
Mm-hmm.
but I always I get something to help me. So the first time I was addicted to coffee, I drank a shit ton of coffee. And then when my girlfriend and I broke up, I didn't eat or drink anything for 3 days, including coffee. And then I just never picked it up again. And it was perfect. And then I knew I needed something to throw me out of my routine to quit with the tea. And so in August, that just lined up.
That's awesome. I mean, just the dependency that you can grow drinking tea, or, I mean, even though marijuana isn't per se an addictive drug, some people can become dependent on it depending on how much they smoke and all that good stuff. So, I mean, I myself have been addicted to caffeine, and that process for me, because I drank caffeine my whole entire life, it was just freaking so difficult for me. It took probably I think it was like a month and a half of me just agonizing, one less drink. It's so painful for me, that type of thing, and it was fucked up, dude. It was terrible.
I'm imagining like an amazing docuseries. You guys ever remember Super Size Me? The thing where the guy...
The McDonald's one.
Yeah, the guy forced himself to eat McDonald's food for some amount of time, and
Every day for a month, I think it was.
So yeah, something like that. And he recorded everything that was going on in his life. He went to his doctor regularly. I can just imagine an absolutely hilarious and amazing docuseries where someone like gets themselves addicted to various kinds of things, and then the docuseries is, like a montage of them getting addicted to it, and then the actual series is day one of them trying to kick the addiction. And you go to day 90, or I don't even know.
I mean, I bet there's studies exactly like that. I bet that there
Right.
are legitimate clinical studies where they've been like, let's get somebody addicted to something, and then let's
Right.
see. So I bet if you picked the right university, you could go and find tapes of this exact kind of a thing.
Right, this has got to be a thing, but I just thought of it. This would be amazing as a TV show. So many people would watch this. Like I think here's what I'm imagining. Yeah, it's relatable. Exactly. I'm thinking we could get like some big name people. We get like a Dr. Phil kind of guy in here, okay? And we could have him sit down with these people regularly and be like, "Have you ever thought about how your family felt about this?" And just like ask like all kinds of these questions like that. We get them to sit down with like an Oprah type person.
Are you doing this with drug addicts or
No.
caffeine addicts?
Like regular people.
Regular people.
They go and they get addicted to various things.
So
it could
we
be
get them
caffeine.
addicted to drugs.
They volunteer to be addicted. Tom, don't be so aggressive with your language here. We're not injecting people with heroin. We're getting people to inject themselves with heroin for money. It's like the opposite of heroin dealing.
They pay you?
No, we pay them.
Oh, yeah, no,
We pay
I get it
them
now.
to get high on camera for a certain amount of time, and then we keep paying them to stop doing the drugs. That's the real opposite of heroin dealing right there. You pay people to stop doing drugs. But I can just imagine that being an awesome TV show. I don't know. That just struck me right there. I'm gonna try to run with that.
Okay.
So you asked Nico a couple questions about him. You got any questions for me? I remember you.
I feel like I know quite a bit about you now.
Really, you do?
I don't know. I feel like I do. Yeah. How many siblings do you have?
I have two.
You have a sister.
I have a sister and I have a brother.
Is the brother older?
Yeah, both are older. Sister's eldest.
I hear your sister mentioned more than I ever hear about your brother.
Well, that's probably because my brother's away, and me and my sister always butt heads constantly. So I'm probably like, oh, my sister.
Where is he away?
He lives in Akron, Ohio right now.
Why?
He was working with the football coaching staff up there
Nice.
and going to school.
Did he graduate?
Almost. He's still going to school now. He has I think just a course or two that left before he
Nice.
officially graduates.
Good for him. That's awesome.
Since I already mentioned it, I think a couple weeks ago, I'm just going to say it. He told us that he graduated last semester, here at the... Tom rolls his eyes audibly. Yeah, like he told us that he graduated. And we celebrated and everything. We went up to this nice restaurant up there in Akron. And then he comes back like a couple months later. He's like, yeah, so you guys know I've been working more and taking on this other job. Yeah, I'm just doing that so I can pay for school. I'm almost graduated, I promise. It was so funny.
What did your parents say? That's very troubling.
They were really mad, but like this, they told me the second they hung up the phone, they cracked up laughing. Like that's why he got another job. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, at least he's paying for it,
Yeah.
So that's good.
It'd be one thing if he was like, "Hey guys, I need a couple $1,000s this month," and they're like, "What for?" And he just doesn't tell them. That would be a whole different situation. But yeah, I don't know. What do you know about me?
Well, I know that you're from Inglewood, or I guess you would then say Clayton.
Clayton.
Yeah, that's what I was waiting for.
That was a little loud. My bad. Yeah.
I think that you're studying marketing.
Okay.
Am I right?
No.
Oh, what are you studying?
Econ.
I forgot. You do the finance thing.
I do economics, actually.
You're studying economics specifically?
Yes.
Talk to me about the that's not the word. What is the you were studying for the Series 6 and the
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
The company was called Transamerica.
There it is.
Under the larger company WFG, World Financial Group. I believe my license is not up until what will it be? April. Yeah, April of next year. So I'm still currently a licensed financial advisor.
Wow.
I've made so little progress, towards getting some of the better licenses. That was my stomach.
I thought it was the dog. Yeah.
I know, it really sounded like a howling wolf. I've made so little progress. I've really wanted to get back into it this winter break that just passed, but I had immediate monetary concerns, so I just got like a little job. Went back to Panera for a little while, but then I started up here at Kroger.
You're at Kroger now, right?
Yeah, I'm working at Kroger now. Yeah.
And you're enjoying it?
Oh yeah, I love ClickList. It's a lot of fun. It's the online service. So
Nice.
we do two things. We go out and shop for people basically, and then we come out and load them up as they pull into our parking lot. It's fun.
Does Kroger's offer delivery service yet?
Not officially through the store, but they have this. They had some people set up an app that essentially operates like a Grubhub app. Somebody comes in, some like random person who uses the app signs in, comes into the store, gets all your stuff, drives it to your house at a specific time. So yeah,
Kroger's is a good company. It's an Ohio company.
yeah, Cincinnati, man. But yeah. I don't know. One of the things is I'm really bad at talking about myself, so I found that I really come off as like a fairly and I don't mean to say shallow, but like a fairly like monodimensional person. People talk with me and they act like they have me figured out. Like they act like they know like what.
Well, what do you want people to know about you? What questions do you want me to ask?
There you go.
What have I not asked that I should?
What are your career goals or something like that?
Okay. What are your career goals?
Okay. That's question one. Then I guess what occupies you most of your free time or something like that? Or...
Okay. Actually, I'm more interested in that than the career goals.
Okay. So,
what occupies you most in your free time?
Okay, it's three things.
We only get to pick one.
Oh, okay. That's true.
We said most.
I am enamored with geopolitics.
Nice.
And
is this a troubling time for you? Have you noticed everything that's going on? I mean, this whole Trump scenario is playing out across the globe. You know, in countries like Brazil.
Yeah.
In France,
Yeah.
Goddamn Brexit.
Yeah.
Is that troubling? Like, what do you make of that?
So the first thing that I would do is I would say that this isn't a Trump thing. I think the media here in our country, we really fall in love with personality to a degree that we think that individuals are influencing things that are going on in the world, when largely, especially in a country like America, the business is the number one mover in terms of like our national interest and what really gets done at the end of the day. I'm not like one of those kind of like grim, like, oh, I believe in the realpolitik, like that's a European way of saying it, but
nice.
Like, I don't believe like there's this grim like will of nations or anything like that. But I do believe that, you know, largely, like if Vladimir Putin, for example, were to be hit by a car, this is a saying people say from time to time, another ex-KGB Kremlin guy would just step up and he would operate essentially the same way Vladimir Putin operates. Maybe he'd give a couple different speeches. Maybe he would decide to do things in a slower or more accelerated manner. But largely speaking, you know, Russia kind of has its interests, and largely speaking, either it's going to succeed in fulfilling those interests or it's going to fail and it's going to suffer. Does that make sense? So what's going on in Brazil, what's going on in Russia, Europe, Brexit, here in America? Like if Hillary Clinton were to be elected, we wouldn't have been pulling back from like the world order probably until like the next 4 years. Like probably around 2022. But the fact that it was Trump, we started pulling out of the world order in 2017. You know what I mean? At least that's the way I see it. I think the reason that things in the world have been going the way they've been going, the Europeans kind of pulled out their military requirements. Let's say let me step back. The point of a military alliance is to have two different militaries or more that are aligned against an enemy. The Europeans kind of disintegrated their militaries after the Soviet Union fell. They focused all their economies on social welfare, social spending. That's why quality of life can be much, much better there than it can be here. And they didn't necessarily see eye to eye with us on a lot of our different national security interests. Like I think France and like maybe a couple other nations were like very gung ho with us when it came to the I don't know what to call them, the wars on terror, excuse me. And that really kind of showed a rift there between us and the Europeans. And now that Russia's kind of becoming more aggressive, most of the European powers aren't really doing much of anything in terms of showing force against Russia's aggression. Right now, the only remnants of the NATO alliance in terms of actual military numbers are United States, Poland, Hungary, and Romania.
So do you think all this is like a good thing, though? I mean, how is your feeling on it?
Oh God, my feeling. I got into politics because I'm a green energy fanatic. I'm personally like a very left wing guy. This world is terrible. Like I thought I lived in a world where, like after the Soviet Union fell, I really thought that things were going to be like radically different about the world, and that humans were going to be able to do all kinds of great and cool things. I thought the 2020s were going to be like a space race age. We were going to start mining asteroids. The first trillionaire would be named, and things would be just so much different and so much better. But what's really happening is history is kind of going to come back. You know, nations are kind of operating in their national interest in a way that they haven't since, I don't know, before World War II. And it's business as usual, you know. So I feel it's very grim. I feel terrible about it, actually. But that's what occupies most of my free time.
So what else on that list? So I said you had to pick one, but okay, now that we've gone through that, I'm ready to hear the other.
Yeah. So immediately after that, I would say anthropology, not just history, but anthropology. So just humans and how society operates. I've always kind of been a little socially awkward. Like not awkward, but I've always felt like I never really belonged too much. So what this always gave me is like this ability to kind of like look at things and just see how and why people do what they do.
Keep that.
Thank you. I try. It kind of sucks. It makes me kind of hard to be around, which kind of feeds into the social awkwardness.
I think that you perceive that. I don't think it's real.
Oh, well, thank you. I've gotten better, at least. Let me definitely tell you that, because for a while I was like that kid who literally had no friends. Like that was like an actual thing.
Nico is very upset. He is.
Remember middle school?
I'm your day one, homie.
You are my day one, absolutely, forever.
How long have you guys known each other?
Since diapers,
Nice.
man. Yeah, his family moved in next door, and it's been we have old videos of like me when I'm a little 2-year-old baby on our various vacations, and I'm just like, I want to go home and play with Enzo, Nico, and Rocco wasn't. Rocco wasn't a thing yet.
Rocco was an infant.
No.
He moved there when he was born.
You and your brother have O names.
Enzo, Nico, and Rocco.
All
There's
three of them.
Three.
Yeah. Enzo's eldest, Rocco's youngest. Go ahead. Yeah.
It's very Italian of you.
So we have my oldest brother, Vincenzo Luigi Libertini. We have me, Nico Valentino Libertini. And then my little brother, Rocco Xavier Libertini. So, yeah, that's the 3 Libertini boys.
You guys Catholic?
Yeah, born into Catholic. I don't really agree with like the church and structured religion. So, I don't know what I am, technically.
You haven't decided?
No.
Oh, you're young. You don't have to.
Yeah, I know. I haven't got to that point yet, but I don't think I don't even know if I would ever go to an organized religion again, just because it's run by people and people are flawed, and people put their own views and egos into a structured group that they create. You know what I'm saying? So I can't necessarily subscribe to that fact, but I also don't believe that if you are a religious person that you don't have to go to an organized religion to practice religion. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Marcus, what do you think about that?
I guess to put it a different way, it's that this might be the language might be a little what's the word, coded here, but like you can be spiritual without being religious. Not coded. What's the phrase? When like words are carrying certain kinds of baggage.
Connotation?
Yeah. Like there's a bit of a connotation when people say the word spiritual. They mean like not believing in anything specific, just kind of like there's a higher being, a higher power, the universe. That's typically what people mean when they say
I like
spiritual.
the universe. I think the universe wants good things for you.
Okay.
For everyone.
Okay. But you can say that I believe in God, or you can even say Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, but just be a spiritual person, if that makes sense. What do I think about that? I'm definitely religious. I'm definitely a Christian. I don't.
How many religions have you studied?
How many religions have I studied?
In depth.
In depth? 0.
Including Christianity?
I am in the process of studying Christianity. I'm actually in a Bible study group. I am tardy, let's say, because my friends, they kind of got me involved in the Bible study group as they were already kind of, let's say, halfway through Genesis, and it's kind of been sporadic, if that makes sense. But no, I am in the process of studying the Bible to understand it more. I like Shintoism as well. And Taoism. I think just like Japanese thought is very interesting. I love, this is one particular proverb, or not proverb, this one particular idea that kind of lines up with Christianity very well. And it essentially means that to sin isn't to do something wrong, or it isn't simply to do something wrong, or it isn't something immoral. Sin is actually an archery term, and what it means is to miss due to improper aim technique. So it's not just that your arrow missed the mark. It's not just that you weren't doing things right. It's that to truly sin, to truly do something that is unholy, or not in the righteous way, is to not be prepared, in a sense. I'm kind of bastardizing it here, but it's essentially like, to sin is to not practice, and to sin is to not try. Because the idea is, if you're aiming an arrow properly and you miss, you still gave it your best shot. Maybe there were some other things going on, but you did your part properly. So to be a righteous person, it's to do your part properly, and I really, really like that.
Okay.
It's kind of warming, because it's like, even if you miss, even if you didn't get there, you're fine, because you did what you could and you did it right.
Yeah.
I
think that's pretty neat. I see what you mean.
So outside of anthropology, I play video games. Those are the 3 things.
Nice.
Video games are a lot less interesting than geopolitics, excuse me.
Well, I think video games can be pretty interesting, but
yeah.
What do you guys play? I'm assuming you both play the same things. No?
We used to play the same games all the time. I would love to come over to their house, because my mom was very, very strict with the amount of games we could have and how long we could play them and how often. But they had an amazing catalog of games. Like, first off, I always had PlayStation products. They always had, or Sony products. They always had Xbox, which is Microsoft, right?
Why didn't you start switching to Microsoft, or him start switching to PlayStation?
PS2, but
Yeah, you guys did have a PS2,
after that, we
but
went to Xbox.
yeah. I wasn't making any purchasing decisions.
But I mean, in some way you must. You say, Mom and Dad, hey, this is what's in.
That's the thing. He didn't give any video games in general.
No. It wasn't like let me put it like this. It was like maybe a yearly thing. Like, maybe at Christmas I could get a game. It was like that.
Okay.
They were much more willing to get me toys, or like something that would be like physical and get me active, which was nice, and I actually do kind of thank them, because I could have turned out to be like a very different person if I had lived a different kind of life, and I'm glad that how should I put it? I'm glad that like everything that led here happened, because I like being me.
Yeah, no, and that's the way to be. That's the right way to think about stuff. People have our brains are wired to be happy with whatever situation that we're in, as long as it's permanent. So whatever aspect is permanent of it, we're fine with it. We're like, yeah, that's most of the time. I mean, I guess some people will be like, oh, I hate this, and then they spiral into crippling depression. But for the most part, I mean, our brains are designed to help us be happy with the situation that we're in.
Me, I am really into RPG games.
Like what?
Skyrim, Fallout, Assassin's Creed.
Never PC. You guys always did.
I got a nice gaming PC in my office, but
That's something that's actually really funny. Now that you mention it, going all the way through till I guess I would say like mid to late adolescence, which is the period I'm in now, or we're in now, mid to late adolescence. It was always console, but around the time mid adolescence hit, then it shifted to PC. Did you see that same thing? Yeah. Go ahead.
That was fun to watch.
I know. Like I said on the episode before this, I'm getting a new setup with the rest of my tax money, so it'll be a lot more convenient for when we have guests.
I thought you said you were saving 85%. You said your tax money. Okay.
I still got, dude.
Okay.
My tax return was huge. Okay.
It's interesting how people think about taxes.
I know. Well, I actually feel bad when I have a big tax
You
return.
should be unhappy to ever get money back.
No, I completely agree with that. The only reason why I'm sort of not unhappy, most of it was because of my child. I got to claim my child this year, so it withheld more taxes, but yet I'm still in a
How does
shitty
that
position.
work? You both get to claim
No.
him as a dependent?
No.
Only
So,
one of you.
I am split from his mother, and we had legal documents signed that every other year I would get to claim him on my taxes, and this was my year to claim him on taxes. So, yeah, we got a bunch of legal documents hashing out all the rules and regulations of child care expenses, all that crap. So,
Interesting.
but yeah, no, I have all the 85% in my savings. I still have a decent amount. Left over that I can spend on
People
it.
think about their taxes as found money, and they think of this as, an extra paycheck, I guess. But it's not. I mean, that is the money that you already earned that you gave to the government at 0% interest all year.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, I think that I personally believe that as a whole, the government does good things with our tax money more often than not, and that these things help us all. But it's still better to have had that money yourself.
Oh, exactly.
Because then you can earn interest on it throughout the year.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, like I was saying, I always feel bad when I get money back, just because I know I did not make enough to be able to pay taxes as opposed to receive. You know what I'm saying? Like my mom and dad, they're in the position where they had to pay taxes instead of getting money out, because they are in that higher income range, as opposed to me where I'm in the...
That's not why.
That's not?
No. You're getting money back because you've paid too much in tax.
Oh.
You've paid more than is your fair share. And that overpayment, the government has had all year and been doing whatever they want with it, and now they owe it back to you. The reason your parents pay tax at the end of the year is because they've underpaid all year. They haven't paid enough.
Oh.
But you would rather be the person who's paying than the person who's getting it back if you structure everything properly. Because if you're the one paying, that means instead of you giving the government an interest-free loan all year, you are yourself keeping the money, are able to generate interest off of it, and then are paying the money that you owe.
And see, here's the amazing thing that, like, they always say that knowledge is power, and this is very, very true. And here's one of the reasons why. If you are the type of person who knows, on the whole, what your expenses are going to be for the year, how much money you're going to be bringing in for the year. Say you own a business, or you work a regular steady job, and you know that these are going to be what like your figures are going to be at the end of the year. You can actually measure this. Like, you can actually set aside the amount of money that will be necessary at some interest rate, whatever have you. You can set it aside, and watch it grow the entirety of the year and see exactly like dollar for dollar how much money what your would-be tax payment would be, how much money that can earn you within that year, April 17th, or is it April 17th, or
I don't know,
April 17th to April 17th. Like, you can actually measure that, and it's really, really cool. I know this guy. He I don't know if he still does it, but he does my friends' parents. He does their taxes and all their stuff like that. I had a conversation with him once, and he was just saying like that he does this fun thing every year where he just tries to like guess how much he's supposed to be paying in taxes. You know, he knows that, of course, like Tom said, he's going to be underpaying now, and he's going to be paying more money back later. So, an anti-refund. I don't know, like, what would you call that?
What?
When you pay money to the government, when you file your taxes?
Paying your taxes.
That's a sign that I'm tired.
Most people do estimate, well, not most people. People who don't
yeah.
work a steady job. People who are, like, retired or who are, like, contractors, people that own their own business will pay estimated income tax.
Right.
Quarterly. Yeah. It's just they generally underpay, and those are the people who you see needing to pay at the end of the year. But that, again, if you operate properly, which no one does, but if you do, then that's the far better way to owe money at the end of the year.
Yeah, it's just like a powerful thing to just see like those dollars rake in that you wouldn't be getting.
People don't think about it right. Like, for instance, Nico, this is a good question to ask you. What is better? If I have $100,000 in cash and I want to buy a house, should I buy the $100,000 house, or should I take the mortgage and then have to pay interest on the amount that I've spent on the value of the house?
I think it would be the mortgage. I don't know.
Well, most people would say, if I have $100,000, I can either buy the house or I can take a loan.
Yeah.
Pay what,
$10,000? I'll pay $10,000 and I'll take a loan. But over the course of the loan, I'm going to pay like twice the value of the house, right? Of those two, which would you think is better?
Well, just paying it all up front.
And most people would say that.
Yeah,
but if you invested, a mortgage is going to go at like 4% or 5% right now. If you invested the $100,000 in an S&P 500 fund, something that mirrors that, on average, you're going to get 10% a year versus 5% a year. And in 30 years, you'll have $1 million in a house, and you'll have still paid for the house 3 times over, but you'll also have $1 million additional on top of that from the invested money.
All right, that makes sense.
But compound interest, people don't think about it right. The quickest way to build wealth is to leverage your credit, leverage your assets and your credit, I guess, really.
All right, let's learn something new.
This is why Tom's one of my favorite people. He's just a reservoir. You can just come in whenever and drink.
One of my friends told me a few weeks ago that having a conversation with me, if you haven't had an existential crisis, I will cause you to have one. So to have a conversation with me, you have to be like really sure of yourself, because if you're not, I will cause you to question it, and that's hard for a lot of people.
I once had this like amazing idea to like completely reform America's school systems, and like one day before a club meeting, I just like came in. Tom was there earlier, and I'm like, dude, this just makes so much sense. Like, this is just what we need to do. It'll be so much better. And just like coldly, he just was like, bang, bang, bang. That's a terrible idea, Marcus. I mean, he said it in a slightly kinder way, let's say. Slightly kinder. But
well, the point of it isn't to say this is a bad idea, but it's to cause you to think about the idea as a whole. It's probably a good idea, but you need to know what's wrong with it so that you can defend it. And if there's too many things wrong with it, so that you can change your idea.
Exactly, and this is what I actually have to thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I don't know before, but you're welcome.
Specifically, just at our last meeting that we had just about a week ago on Monday, we talked about that business idea I mentioned to you.
The conveyor. Or no,
the business idea that we talked about. Immediately after I got out of my classes, I went to go hang out with a buddy before I was planning on going to our Thursday night meeting, but a bunch of other things happened.
Sometimes it'd be like that.
Yeah, man.
It do.
Just fast forward 3 days to that Thursday. I'm in my friend's house, and he's told me so much about his dad. His dad's a total jerk. He's a terrible person. I run into his dad for the first time ever, and he's like, "Oh yeah, Eugene's told me a bit about you." I'm like, "Okay, so what do you do?"
You just dropped your friend's name in there.
Oh, I mean, shh. The point is, he goes, "Oh yeah, I'm an electrical engineer," and I'm like, "Oh, like I just talked with Tom and Tariq, and this is the person that I need to talk to. I need to talk to an electrical engineer." I say, "Oh yeah, so what do you study?" And he said, "Yeah, I really started, with a background in physics." I'm like, "Oh."
As many electrical engineers do.
Yeah. I'm like, "Oh, okay. What was your what was your interest? Like, what was your focus? What do you want to do with that?" He says, "Man, I really thought electromagnets were such a cool thing." And Tom's shaking his head because he knows
all around you all the time there are things just like this. You just have to go out and talk, and then you'll find them.
But here's the thing that I have to thank you for. Where I was at in my ideation process for the business, I was purely thinking that I needed to talk to a mechanical engineer. I needed to talk to someone, and I needed to prototype this, and I needed to visualize it, and I needed to run with it then. I had no idea that I wasn't even asking myself the right questions or thinking about the problem in the right way until you kind of you and Tariq kind of coldly went point by point on the idea, and were like, these are the things you really need to focus on. These are the things you know. These are the things you do not know. And you put my focus, well, I clearly need to think about this idea more. I need to talk to an electrical engineer. And
nice.
I probably wouldn't have even asked. I may have asked those questions oh, what do you study, or what do you do, or what was your major, in high school. I don't know what the interaction would have gone like, but it definitely would not have gone the amazing way that it did after our conversation.
There's things like that all the time. I had an experience like that with Barn Gang. Early on in its concept, we realized we needed to go to city council meetings and see what the workings of how does an ordinance become a law, how does that happen. And the very first Centerville City Council meeting I ever went to, I just was there to take notes. Nobody has any idea who I am. I'm just sitting in the back. I have a notebook. I'm writing stuff down, listening, observing what's going on. And the city planner got up and wanted to submit an ordinance to change the gradient of driveways or something. It wasn't driveways. It was a business, to the road entering the parking lot of a business. It was something they had recently changed. And he wanted to change it to a different thing. And this lady stood up, one of the councilwomen stood up and said, I take issue with that. I represent the business district of the city of Centerville, and I hear often from my constituents that these are small businesses. They've got no way to know the law changes every time you change it, and they don't have the funds to hire a lawyer to go through and keep them updated on all of it, and there's just no good place for them to go to find out what these ordinances are. That was the very first city council meeting I ever went to. Nobody knew, I hadn't talked to anybody. I was still this was my idea that me and my friends were mulling over, and we wanted to see if there was anything to it.
That's awesome.
And it goes hand in hand with that. If you pursue something, one of the problems that I feel a lot of people have is they're like, oh, I don't know what I want to do, and then they do nothing. If you don't know what you want to do, that's fine. Do something. You don't have to pick the end goal today. You don't have to right now figure out what you're meant for. But you need to pick a direction and go in it. It doesn't have to be the direction, but it has to be a direction. Because if you just stand still, if you just sit, then you're going to miss those opportunities where you go to your friend's house and meet his electrical engineer dad who has a background in the thing that you are trying to learn about.
I think that's a great place to end this, Tom.
Yeah, I think that, yeah. Thank you guys very much for having me on.
Am I first or you first?
How do you guys end it? What's your ritual?
Actually, my ritual is I have a question for you. I've heard a lot about your business, a little bit about your life. What are some of the biggest trials and tribulations that you have gone through, and how have you grown from them, if you would like to talk about them?
Interesting. Can we save it for another time?
I mean, we can. That's okay.
How long of a response do you want?
As long as you want, dude. Honestly, I'm really not in a hurry. No one really,
well,
unless you have someplace to be.
I feel like that's an extended response question, and I don't know if it's one that I could do off of the top.
Okay.
But if you gave me time to think about it, and if you guys let me come on again,
Oh, of course.
I could spend an entire podcast talking about that.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, we can for sure do that. Alrighty, well then that's my ending ritual.
Sorry, I apologize. I totally...
It's fine, brother. This has been a lot of fun, man. All right, I've been Marcus.
I've been Nico.
And this was Porch Talk. Thanks for listening.